ATP, what it do with your boy Claymore Rain? Salute to all my subscribers, all my supporters. We back at it with another one. It's been a while since I put one of these videos out. You guys have probably been catching us on the lives, right? Always try to tune in, guys. If it's your first time tapping into this content, hit the subscribe button, of course, and check us out Tuesdays, Thursdays, usually about 2:30, 3 o'clock. You know, we kick it off talking about everything current in the boxing space. Shout out to the co-host, Angelo Reyes, and my other co-host, Ray Davis. We run a pretty good show, man. Guys, tap in, and definitely the phone lines are open on that show, so feel free to call in, put your 2 cents in. And of course, from time to time, we do open the panel up and build with the community. So shout out to everybody supporting the channel. We are on our way to 3,000 subscribers. It's a journey, learning everything about how to deliver this content. But one thing I do love is I love all combat sports, by the way, of course. But, you know, boxing does hold a special warm place in my heart. So this one right here on Ryan Garcia, you know, really taking time. Ryan Garcia really taking time and taking a look at this situation. And sometimes time moves so fast. Because I can really remember when Ryan Garcia was the up-and-coming kid on the block, right? Right in the same conversation as Devin Haney, right? Gervonta Tank Davis, right? Even Shakur Stevenson. You know, these fighters, Teofimo Lopez, these fighters that came up, it seemed like it came into the game around the same time. And Ryan Garcia was one of those guys who you just really thought was going to do something significant in the game. And to a certain extent, he has done significant things in the game, right? I mean, not in a traditional sense, but maybe with the antics a little bit, right? Maybe with the antics, you know, great knockouts, one of the best left hooks that I've seen in a long time, maybe ever. I don't know. As far as in real time, Ryan Garcia has one of the crispiest, tightest, fastest, powerful left hooks, snappy left hook that lays a lot of people on their backside, right? Whether you recover from it or not, you know what I mean? That goes from fight to fight. But regardless, looks like and check the boxes in some ways of a fighter who had a great future in the space. But at some point or another, Ryan Garcia jumped off the rails, right? Ryan Garcia goes in a different direction. The question is, when did this really happen, right? When did Ryan Garcia become more of the character Ryan Garcia than the boxer, the pugilist Ryan Garcia? When did that happen, and why did it happen? Who knows, right? I mean, there's no secrets. Respectfully, never throwing shots at mental health, but Ryan Garcia has been somebody who's been pretty openly outward, communicating to the space his struggles with the mental health game. And in that space, in the mental health space, it's even driven him to taking hiatuses from the sport. In particular, I believe it might have been after the Luke Campbell fight, right? But let's take a look at his box rec over his last couple of fights, and let's really take a little bit of a dive into what Ryan Garcia has been up to. And then I have a question to ask at the end of the segment, and you guys can answer it in the comment section, because I'm really interested in what the space thinks on this topic here. Ryan Garcia now at 147 pounds, but let's go back a little bit, right? Let's take it back to, let's do Francisco Fonseca. That fight right there in Anaheim, California, in the Honda Center. This was when I thought Ryan Garcia was definitely on the right path. And around this time, you're looking for Ryan Garcia. You're already thinking about Ryan Garcia fighting a Devin Haney, or getting even, you know, going up in weight. He was fighting at 135 in the 135-pound weight class division. So I don't believe in this point in time, Gervonta Tank Davis was quite in the 135 division yet. I mean, I'm just going off the top of my head. He might have been at 130 at that time, but regardless of the fact, around this time, Ryan Garcia was in the conversation of becoming a champion, right? Holding a WBC silver title at the time, I believe it was, which was going to put him right in line to getting a fight with for a WBC belt. And I believe Devin Haney at that time was holding a regular version of the belt or something like that, right? But regardless of the fact, great knockout in this fight, puts Francisco Fonseca out with that left hook, right? Early. First round knockout. Then he goes up into his next fight, his significant fight, right? Luke Campbell, a fighter who was supposed to be in there with the likes of Lomachenko. I mean, this guy was a champion, an interim title holder at the time, as we can see here. This was for, well, he wasn't an interim champ. Well, I think he was an interim champion. Don't quote me. But regardless, this was for a WBC interim title right there. Luke Campbell puts Ryan Garcia down in round 2, right? Catches him when Ryan Garcia has been known for backing up with his chin high, right? Luke Campbell times it out. I believe it was a right hand that caught Ryan Garcia and puts him on his pockets for the first time in his career. And listen, all credit to Ryan Garcia. He gets up, he processes it, he takes his 8 count and gets himself right back in the game, ultimately able to put Luke Campbell down in the 7th round with a ripping body shot. I mean, and that was one point where you look at the way he performed in that fight and you said he has grit, right? He's going to be hard to keep down. Heart of a lion, heart of a champion, right? Was it around this time they started calling him King Ryan? I don't know, right? I think it might have been. I don't know, right? But he was definitely, I was a fan of Ryan Garcia at this point. I'm like, man, I can't wait to see this kid do his thing against the real opponents. I thought he was going to be part of some of the biggest fights that could be made. He was definitely one of the 4 kings at that point. I mean, the 4 kings gets kind of rotated a little bit, but if off the top of my head, I have to go Tank, Ryan, definitely Devin Haney, and if not Shakur Steven, Teofimo Lopez, or maybe interchangeable, or maybe even like really probably was Teofimo Lopez, because at this time I believe Shakur is fighting at 126 pounds. So it's probably more so Teo, Devin, Gervonta Tank Davis, and Ryan Garcia, right? And these are the 4 kings, and Ryan's holding up his side of the conversation as far as being one of the guys who are going to be the king. And we wanted to see all these guys fight each other completely, all of them we want to see fight each other, crisscross all around. We want to see them fight each other. So what happened here, right? 2021, January of 2021, after this fight, Ryan Garcia states that he's going to take a moment to step away from the space. Keep in mind that he's just putting on a WBC interim title. So he's literally in line, I believe, to fight Devin Haney at this point and pick up his first title. But something happens. Ryan Garcia decides that he wants to go ahead and take a hiatus from the space. He wants to deal with his mental health issues. And I think this might have been the first time that I got made aware of. You guys let me know in the content in the comment section if there was another time. But this is when I first became aware of Ryan Garcia struggling with mental health issues. And look, we're going to respect that, right? Boxing is a very tough sport. You're not meant to get punched in your head. If you're dealing, they say 70 to 80%, right? Mental, 20 to 30% physical. So that's an important thing right there. So we gave him time to go ahead and get it together. We come back a year and some change later, almost a year and a half later, in April of 2022, he comes and he makes a return. Gets a unanimous decision, fights a 12 long round fight here. Here he's starting to float now, right? He's leaving the 135 division. He's not quite at 148, but he fights this one at 138.25 pounds. Ryan Garcia is growing. Keep in mind, he was a young man at this time. This is 2021. We're in 2026 right now. So I believe he's about 27 years old. So around this time, he's like, what? Do the math, guys. I don't know. What is he, 21? 22, I don't know, right? Somewhere around that age, right? And a young guy. They're growing. You see a lot of fighters going through that right now. If you look at Xander Zayas, for example, or Jalil Hackett, these guys are growing so fast. They're young men at the end of the day. Some people might even want to say kids to a certain degree. Sometimes we forget that because these guys are in the ring fighting grown men. It's an adult sport. It's not a sport you play. They're in there putting it all on the line. And sometimes you forget how young these guys really are. So Ryan Garcia, being the young guy that he is starting to grow. He gets in the ring with Emmanuel Tago after staying outside of the ring for about a year and a half to deal with this hiatus that he was taking from the sport. And he fights a 12-round fight and just pretty much dominates. A good fight by Ryan Garcia. Gets a full unanimous decision here. The scorecards was very lopsided. You can see here 119-108, 118-109, 119-108. He dominated the fight, right? 12-round fight. Now he's in the conversations at this point. Ryan Garcia returns with a certain passion from the sport that, once again, we could all appreciate and we're all fans of. One thing about Ryan Garcia that he's shown is that he's always been a very headstrong person, doesn't really play the game, follow the leader too well. He's more of his own man, and you respected that about Ryan Garcia, because it seems like for the most part he's always used that to get himself in the best fights possible. He wants to fight the biggest stars, the more competitive fights that are out there. That's what I've always known of Ryan Garcia. You guys let me know in the comment section if you know something different. I'm sure there's a lot of fault that you can give to Ryan Garcia for where his headstrong comments have led him. But at the end of the day, for the most part, always been somebody who wants to fight the best fights. So after the Javier Fortuna fight that he takes, right, he wants this Gervonta Tank Davis fight, but he gets in there and he fights Javier Fortuna. This fight here at an 140-pound division, he comes into this fight, and this was a great fight. Even though Javier Fortuna himself, I believe, was coming up from a low weight, he was a smaller guy towards the end of his career at that point. But a great fight. This was the super the phantom punch almost, right? The left hook was so fast, even when you slow it down on the camera, you don't see Javier Fortuna get hit with this left hook. Not to say that it was fake. I mean, honestly, if you look hard enough, you can kind of see the motion and see how he got hit, but it was such a tight, quick, snappy left hook. Put Javier Fortuna down. He put him down in round 4, round 5, and ultimately in round 6, Javier Fortuna was unable to answer the bell, right? Great work by him at this point in time. He's grown his fan base up since his return. He's had 2 fights now. Both of these fights have him looking like somebody somebody to be worried of, or somebody to really train for. Not anybody and everybody wants to jump in the ring with him. He's feeling comfortable, but now he's ready to make his next fight his best fight. He wants the biggest fights available. He wants to make the money. He wants to capitalize not only off the work he's done inside the ring, but outside the ring, building up his fan base, building up his brand, becoming one of the most popular young fighters in the sport, who has not headlined a pay-per-view at this point. I don't know even if has been on a pay-per-view, but he's ready to claim his spot. So he campaigns diligently and hard to fight against, at that time, a new and upcoming fighter, the face of boxing at that time, in Gervonta Tank Davis. You guys know about Gervonta Tank Davis, right? Okay, we don't need to go there. So he campaigns, and it looks like the fight's not going to happen. Now, keep in mind, at this point in time, Oscar De La Hoya is pretty much dead set against this fight. They don't think that Ryan Garcia is quite ready. His head looks like it's sort of in the game, but I think Oscar wanted to see him fight a couple more fights. Let's get some development going on. Also, let's see if we can get Gervonta Tank Davis to concede a little bit to the terms. Let's see if we can get him up to 140 pounds, at least make it a fight where you're comfortable. He's a way more experienced fighter than you. He's a real puncher, explosive fighter. I mean, this is going to be a dangerous fight. We're doing a lot of work. From Oscar De La Hoya's point of view, a lot of work with Ryan Garcia to get him to where he needs to be the next golden boy, right? This guy was supposed to be the second coming of Oscar De La Hoya, the next golden boy of Golden Boy Promotions. So we want to take our times getting into this, but like I told you guys earlier, Ryan Garcia is a very, very headstrong person. He's not a follow the leader, go along to get along kind of guy, right? And this is something we've learned to admire about him when it comes to making the best fights, but at the same time has gotten in his way and gotten him in some trouble, as he's going to do as we continue to follow what's been going on with Ryan Garcia. He fights Gervonta Tank Davis at a catch weight fight, comes in at 135.5 pounds, like 136 pretty much, with a 10-pound rehydration clause. So a growing Ryan Garcia, who's probably not supposed to be in the ring with Gervonta Tank Davis, takes this fight with the stipulations that he's got to stay within 10 pounds the morning of the fight. He's depleted. Gervonta Tank Davis pretty much handles him very, very easily, very early in the fight. If not the first, maybe the second round. Garcia gets put down very quickly, as Gervonta Tank Davis was very aware of that check left hook and was slipping and going up under that hook and counterpunching Ryan Garcia in this fight. I mean, he was just completely outclassing Ryan Garcia. He puts him down in round 2 and ultimately ends the fight in round 7 with a body shot. Turns out, we find out, hindsight says, he may have had some issues with one of his ribs due to a hard training session. This right here makes Ryan Garcia his biggest payday, but did it set Ryan Garcia back? One could say yes to a degree, but I think there's also an argument there to say that it put Ryan Garcia on the map. Nobody held it against him that he was in a catch weight fight against a puncher like Gervonta Tank Davis. If anything, credit was given to Ryan Garcia because you did what you had to do to get the fight you wanted, and you didn't let anything get in your way. You took the disadvantage. You believed in your skills that much that you thought you could compete in that state. And you lost, but against the arguable face of boxing, or the young face of boxing, because I think that for me the face of boxing has always been Canelo Alvarez, right? But Gervonta Tank Davis was legitimately making an argument for himself and had a fan base that would have, that's still to this day super loyal fan base. I would have told you 100 times over that he was the face of boxing. So to lose against a face of boxing is not that big of a deal. Ryan Garcia is still a big star, but look. Ryan Garcia takes it to heart, feels like his team betrays him, fires his whole entire team. He feels like there was a mole inside of his camp, didn't like the fact that Oscar De La Hoya and Bernard Hopkins didn't come to support Ryan Garcia in his loss. In that post-press conference, he was up there by himself. It was a bad experience for Ryan Garcia, and he got a chance to see his team for what he could confirm for himself he believes they really are. I have no opinion in one way or another. I'm not there. I don't know how that relationship works. But according to Ryan Garcia, this right here opened his eyes completely to what's going on in his career. So this is in April of 2023, April 22nd of 2023. Ryan Garcia takes that hiatus all the way into the end of 2023. So that's what, 8 months later. He took a real hiatus. What was Ryan Garcia going to do? He makes his return in the Toyota Center in Houston, Texas. Now, at this point, I believe is when you're going to start seeing that Ryan Garcia is openly expressing his indifference with his management and promotional company, Golden Boy Promotions, and specifically Oscar De La Hoya. He starts expressing some indifference with them, right? Believes that, I believe he said in a press conference that he believes that Oscar and Bernard were against him and that they were setting him up, putting him in the ring with a knockout artist, big puncher at the time, 140-pound fighter, and Oscar Duarte Jurado. This guy still right now in the 140-pound division up there as, I believe he's in, if he's not the IBF and maybe the WBO, he's one of those sanctioned bodies. He's on his way to a title shot, right? Oscar Duarte's had a pretty decent career since this fight with Ryan Garcia. But in this particular fight right here, Ryan Garcia brings in a trainer. Is it Derek James? I believe Derek James. This is the beginning of him and Derek James working together. Derek James is now working with Oscar De La Hoya. Not Oscar De La Hoya, with Ryan Garcia, and gets into this fight here with Oscar Duarte. And we start seeing weird things from Ryan Garcia. We start to see what we calling the California roll, just a very awkward getting away from the punch, sort of a Philly shell, but not a Philly shell. Ultimately, just from the outside looking in, looking like anything I can do not to get punched. And was this because of the Gervonta Tank Davis fight? Was he scared now? Did he have some mental block in his mind that didn't want to allow him to exchange to the point to where he got punched? We don't know, right? But regardless, however you want to look at it, he's able to figure it out by round 8, catch Oscar Duarte with that famous left hook, buckles him, he loses his legs, and he finishes him and gets Oscar Duarte out there. And although the fight was ugly, the result of the fight was, if Ryan Garcia doesn't have anything left, what he definitely does have is that left hook, and that's going to be dangerous for anybody he gets in the ring with. So at this point, still being rebellious inside of his own promotional company, what's the next fight going to be? Well, the next best fight at that time, I believe he was trying to put together, it looks like at least, was going to be a Rolly Romero fight. Rolly, who have picked up a title fighting against old man Barroso, a fight that Rolly Romero, a lot of people thought was a very controversial decision, that he lost that fight, but very controversial stoppage in that fight. But regardless, Rolly Romero was in position to give Ryan Garcia his first opportunity to become a champion, as Rolly was holding that WBA title close to his chest. And looks like he was going to try to make a fight happen with Rolly Romero. Well, actually, it went back and forth, right? It went from Devin Haney to Rolly Romero all of a sudden. And Rolly Romero and his team either didn't take the fight. I'm not too sure what ended up happening. I believe Rolly, I'm trying to go on my memory here if I'm correct, maybe Rolly went and fought Isak Pitbull Cruz at the time, I believe, right? So he does a deal with Oscar De La Hoya. not Oscar De La Hoya, with the PBC to fight in-house and fight Pitbull Cruz, a fight that he ended up losing. Very one-sided event for Rolly Romero, but nonetheless, now who's he going to fight? He ends up putting a fight together with Devin Haney. This is a fight that we were just talking about earlier that he wanted to be in ever since that. Well, I don't know if he wanted to be in the fight, but it was a fight that should have really happened back in 2022 after he in 2022 really, but after he destroyed or stopped Luke Campbell. This should have been the fight that we probably were seeing, was him and Devin Haney. That fight didn't happen. Here we are about 4 to 5 fights later. He gets an opportunity to be in the ring with Devin Haney. At the time, Devin Haney, 135 former undisputed champion, youngest undisputed champion in the 4-belt era at that time. And at this time, Devin Haney holding a WBC title at 140 pounds. Now, this is when we start to see Ryan Garcia truly break apart. Right? This is when we start seeing the antics. We start seeing him be emotional, erratic. He's very angry. You're hearing him pushing out different antics, whether it was in child trafficking or whether it was in sexual abuse that he may have been in or may have not been in when he was younger. If it wasn't, I mean, just everything you could imagine. He started with the racial tension, with the, I mean, just really just showing himself in a way to where somebody you might want to say maybe he's not on their meds, if they do have meds that they're on. Henry Garcia is having to campaign and defend his son. His mother is campaigning to defend him, and he's just doing his own thing, a complete rogue fighter. And in this particular fight, you got the chance to see all access. You saw him walking around, and he just was going to the clubs from what I understand, things of that nature. Ultimately, the fight almost doesn't happen because the New York State Athletic Commission is literally questioning as to whether or not they want to allow the fight to happen because of all of the symptoms he's showing of somebody who's just mentally unhealthy and probably should not be in the ring getting punched in the head. But money talks, everything else walks. The New York State Athletic Commission, unless something really extreme happened, was not going to allow that fight to go by and not make the money. The Barclays Center was already locked in. People would argue that the fight shouldn't even have been there. It should have been somewhere on the West Coast or at least in Las Vegas, because this was a fight that had a lot of eyes on it. But regardless, here we are in the Barclays Center. Ryan Garcia blows weight by 3.5 pounds, doesn't make the weight, the agreed upon weight, which is 140 pounds. Devin Haney, stresses himself, cuts the weight, has a bad weight cut. If you ask me, you can kind of see that he had a bad weight cut, but regardless, makes the weight. But the WBC title not being on the line, Ryan Garcia has an agreement with Devin Haney to pay him a certain amount of money, and the fight happens. Right now, where are we at this point from the Devin Haney fight? Most people were picking Devin Haney to win this fight because this seems like Ryan Garcia didn't prepare accordingly for the fight. Didn't seem like his mind was in the right place for this fight to happen. Like I said, the New York State Athletic Commission questioned even letting the fight happen. But listen, Ryan Garcia has a great night, and more importantly, maybe Devin Haney has probably has his worst night ever, right? As early in the match, Ryan Garcia is able to catch Devin Haney with a check left hook that gets him off his balance. By round 7, Devin Haney finally gets put down. Round 10, he gets put down. Round 11, he gets put down again, and ultimately, there were other knockdowns that just weren't even counted, right? It seemed like every time Ryan Garcia connected with Devin Haney, especially after that first, check left hook catches him in the first round, Devin Haney never quite recovers. It's a horrible fight for Devin Haney. Ryan Garcia wins this fight, even though the judges' scorecards didn't give it a unanimous decision. To be honest with you, the beating was pretty bad, right? And it looked like it was a very one-sided fight. Now, I'd like to go on record to say that I recognize that Devin Haney definitely probably won every single round outside of the rounds he got knocked down in, right? So in the scorecards read, you had Max Zaluka, who put it 112-112, had the fight as a straight-up draw. Then you had Eric Marlinski and Robin Taylor. Marlinski with a 114-110 card, and Robin Taylor with a 115-109 card, right? So majority decision. Ryan Garcia wins this fight, and he's back, right? He proves to the world that he's better than Devin Haney, that he's one of those guys. His argument now that the fight he had with Gervonta Tank Davis was all about a bad weight cut and a bruised rib, and that if he was a fight Gervonta Tank Davis again, it would be a different fight. Not to mention, I think there was no argument there that he was in the best shape of his life. He didn't take the camp as seriously. Could you just started to put everything and paint everything around the idea that if he could just focus on boxing, take it seriously, make those weight cuts, that he could be a champion soon, that he probably should have been a champion in that fight if he would have made the weight. And this is a new chapter in Ryan Garcia's career, right? Well, 2 to 3 weeks later, what comes out? Performance enhancement drugs. You guys know it's about the Osterine that comes out. Once again, back to Ryan Garcia being emotionally unstable during this time. He's tearing up hotels. He's catching case. He's doing a whole bunch of stuff, right? And supposedly dealing with his mother, who may have been dealing with a bit of cancer that came up over her. God bless Mrs. Garcia. I hope that everything worked out well for her. From what I understand, I guess she is, doing pretty well at this point, but I don't know, right? We're not in the background, but at the end of the day, just watching Ryan Garcia mentally break down, the WBC decides to suspend or indefinitely suspend and take Ryan Garcia off the WBC sanctioned and body rankings list because he was spurting out a bunch of stuff, a lot of racial disparaging comments that he was putting out there, religious disparaging comments he was putting out there, just being extra controversial to the point to where Mauricio Suleiman thought the best thing to do was to punish Ryan Garcia, take him off of that list. The New York State Athletic Commission found him, found the Osterine in his B sample, and at that point decided to suspend Ryan Garcia for about a year, I believe, at the time, which really ain't a big deal for Ryan Garcia, a fighter who was already used to taking these hiatuses anywhere from 9 months to a year and a half. He's pretty much fighting probably on an average once a year anyway. So was that really that much of a punishment? Gave him some time to go spend his money, live his life, and maybe figure out some of the mental issues that he may have been dealing with. So now the year is up. Devin Haney and him both take the hiatus. Devin Haney takes an opportunity to recover from what he experienced being in the ring with Ryan Garcia and that horrible performance he has. He has some things to think about. Is he going to stay at 140 pounds? Is he going to go up to the next weight class of 147? He's figuring all that in the year's time. And Ryan Garcia himself is trying to figure things out, but still being pretty active in the social media space, still talking his mess, still kind of like he's dialing back to a certain degree, but he's still being active to a certain degree. Let's fast forward now to this past May 2025, right? About 6 months back, where we see Ryan Garcia now making a deal with Turki Al-Sheikh to be part of some of the biggest fights. I think it was a 3-fight, big fight deal tournament. It involved Teofimo Lopez, Devin Haney, Rolly Romero was part of that situation. And this was going to be his comeback fight. No tune-up fights, but Rolly Romero being somebody that most boxing fans, I think, don't rate the way they rate him. You expected Ryan Garcia to win this fight. And it's so funny because I was talking to my guy, Angelo Reyes, about this, is the fact that I think a lot of people, and the question, look, I'll get into that in a second, right? He fights Rolly Romero in Times Square, very lackluster card. Devin Haney doesn't have his best performance in that card either against Jose Ramirez, but Ryan Garcia gets knocked on his pockets in round 2 by Rolly Romero, and at that point was just on his wheels for the most part, not really engaging, and Rolly Romero was basically able to take that fight pretty easily away from Ryan Garcia. It ends up in a unanimous decision, 112, 115, 109, 118, and 112, 115 for the winner by unanimous decision, Rolly Romero, who at the same time picks up a WBA regular belt at the time, keeping in mind, of course, that Jerron Boots Ennis was an undisputed champion in the division at the time. So, he would have probably been in line to fight a mandatory for Jerron Boots Ennis at that time. But the WBA does something weird, puts that belt on the line for a fighter who's just coming off of being suspended. And I believe Rolly Romero was coming off a very lackluster victory over a fighter that, he should have probably stopped, and he wasn't able to. Just Rolly wasn't looking good at that time, but regardless, beats Ryan Garcia in that situation, becomes a WBA champion. Ryan Garcia takes another loss. Now, this fight right here had a lot of weight behind it because Devin Haney and Ryan Garcia are supposed to be running it back, having a sequel fight to that first fight that became a no contest, right? Decision on because of Ryan Garcia and the performance enhancement drugs. Now this gets all messed up as Rolly Romero derails and messes up the party, breaks the most expensive vase in the room, Ryan Garcia. And what is Devin Haney going to do? I mean, we can talk about that another time with Devin, right? What is Ryan going to do, maybe more importantly? And how is Ryan going to redeem himself on this performance? Well, the WBC takes him off suspension, puts him back in the WBC rankings. Here we are, and rumor has it in February, this fight is a fight that we're going to be looking to see. It's going to be headlining when we're going to see Ryan Garcia and Mario Barrios fight for the 147-pound welterweight WBC title, championship of the world. Ryan Garcia gets blessed with another opportunity to become a champion, and this coming off of a loss. Now, these are part of the reasons people would argue that the sanctioning bodies are always going to be questioned as far as, you know, the way that they choose to carry themselves, but we'll leave that here, right? Here's the question, and as I broke this all down to you guys in the timeline, if you can kind of figure out when it started going left for Ryan Garcia, regardless, right now, Devin Haney's become a WBO champion, beating the #1 welterweight in the division pretty handily, and Brian Norman Jr. needing a dance partner right now, and this being one of the biggest fights that could possibly be made for Devin Haney, not only as far as the history books are concerned, but also paydays for Ryan Garcia as well. Ryan Garcia gets this opportunity to fight against Mario Barrios, and people are questioning as to whether or not Ryan Garcia will win this fight with Mario Barrios. And I think the questions are just being that when you're looking at Ryan Garcia, he's in his living room, he's in his penthouse, he's running mitt work and doing a bunch of things in the laps of luxury of a penthouse. Is he going to show that grit? Is he ready to be in a hard fight in a very difficult uphill battle, potentially against a fighter like Mario Barrios, who's not great at any one thing, but is a good all-around fighter, probably the weaker of the 4 champions that there are in the division, but still a champion within himself. Mario Barrios has been in the ring with the likes of Keith Thurman, with the likes of Abel Ramos, with the likes of Gervonta Tank Davis, Ugas, and he's able to become a welterweight WBC champion on his path. So this is going to be a real test for Ryan Garcia, another opportunity for him to become a champion. But the question is going to be, if Ryan Garcia is not able to cross over this situation and become a WBC champion. By the way, it'll be Ryan Garcia's first official championship belt that he'll have with the WBC, which would put him in the conversations of unifications, and more importantly, him being in there with a mega fight, money and everything against Devin Haney. If Ryan Garcia is not able to accomplish this against Mario Barrios, is this the end of the road for Ryan Garcia? Is Ryan Garcia ready to return to the sport with the spirit of a true pugilist, commit to the work that he needs to do outside the ring? Is he going to be able to commit the time to Derrick James? Is he going to develop? And another question is, if he hasn't been doing this, because we watch him go from I want to say Derrick James to Joe Goosen, back to Derrick James. There was a point in time when seemed like he was getting back with Eddie Reynoso. He's been difficult to tame. Trainers are complaining about his lack of commitment to being where he needs to be, to taking instructions from these trainers to run the camp the way the trainers want the camps to run. So has Ryan Garcia missed a little bit as far as on his development side? Is he not the fighter he should be at this point in his career in comparison to his peers? Has the time he taken on the outside of the ring, get involved in all the antics he's been involved in, has he been taking the time to improve and become a better fighter? And if he hasn't been doing it, can he get enough right now to be that now to catch up to his peers? I think that question obviously gets answered in the ring. It's nothing we can answer on, but I'm very interested in what the audience in the space would care to speculate on what they see in Ryan Garcia and who they think he is at this point right now. As a boxer in the game, is he as high level pedigree of a fighter as we knew him back when he fought, let's say, a Luke Campbell, or has he digressed, or has he just not improved? Either way, on the back end of this fight right here, this may be the end all, be all, tell all story of Ryan Garcia, a fighter who started his career with so much promise, had a great amateur career, national champion multiple times. But was the pressure of boxing too much for him and he wasn't able to sustain? Or is this his return to glory? Does he beat Mario Barrios in February, become a WBC champion, find redemption, finds his passion and his love for the sport again, and becomes one of the biggest stars in boxing. You guys let me know what you think. Put it in the comment section. It's your boy Rain. Really interested in what you guys think about it. The Ryan Garcia saga takes a turn for the better or for the worse at the date of, on February 21st, supposedly. That's what the rumor is. Against Mario Barrios, gets another opportunity to become a champion. But does he mildew on this one, or does he barbecue? It's your boy Rain. This is that ATP Combat Media Show. Guys, remember, like, comment, subscribe, and until the next one, at this point, we out.